All right, so welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Another Bourbon Show. We are 56 minutes into recording so far, and we are just getting started. But lucky for you guys, or unlucky, we have not started drinking anything yet. We haven't sipped on anything. We've just been sitting around bullshitting as people do. But tonight, we are going to be drinking this guy right here. We're going to be drinking some regular old Buffalo Trace. And before we do anything else, Steven, what do you think of that label?
Oh, hey, we got cocktail down here.
He's
Whoa,
trying to
hey.
show off again.
Um, I I think the Buffalo Trace label is pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty.
That's
No, I do have more than that. But
okay.
so Buffalo Trace, first of all, and this will be kind of a theme of the episode for me personally, is that Buffalo Trace, as I've said before, was the bourbon that I was drinking it was my first regular favorite and my go-to bottle. And I want to stress that that was the case before I knew anything about bourbon and before I knew that Buffalo Trace was something that was hard to find, because I just so happen to live in an area where even now Buffalo Trace is not that difficult for me to find. Just regular standard old Buffalo Trace, and you can often find it in a grocery store here for, like, honestly, 22 to 24 bucks pretty often. And that's what I would buy it for. I was like, "Oh, cool, what a nice budget bottle I found." Um and that's kind of, I think, at least what a lot of people would think of Buffalo Trace as. But what initially drew me towards it before I knew any of that stuff, beyond the price, was I really liked the label. I thought that the Buffalo Trace font was really cool. They
Mhm.
really productized the hell out of Buffalo Trace, and that's really obvious now with all the Buffalo Trace products. They now make they did a crossover with Duke Cannon, and they're making like a Buffalo Trace soap now.
Hmm.
If you guys are aware of that, there's like a Buffalo Trace bath soap now, and it all goes back to this same Buffalo Trace. This is always the same on these products. You know exactly when you're looking at a Buffalo Trace thing. Just from, I would recognize this font if they replaced the words entirely. It's a
Mhm.
very good product on the label. They have the little buffalo outline in between the two, and then I like also, it's usually transparent here on the front, but on the back they have a really beautiful green color that matches the top here. Same with like a Welder Special Reserve, same sort of forest green that they have. And I think that all looks really good with the backdrop of that main torn paper piece that shows that old buffalo. And I also like how they kind of hide over here, while still being visible and relevant, the alcohol percentage as well. So I really like this label overall. It's not my absolute favorite in the game, but I think it's really strong, and I'm going to be giving it an 8.0.
Wow.
Yeah.
Honest question. Do you have a hard on right now from talking about that? Because it seems like you might.
I do not. I just think
Okay.
it's a really good bottle, and I think
Okay.
it's a better bottle than it really needs to be, honestly, at this point. Like, I think that it's established at this point, and I think there's a lot of bourbon that is like a budget level bottle, um, that have way worse labels.
Mhm.
So I think that it's still a really nice looking product overall, and it still has that premium feel. And I think that's part of the overall package of what makes them popular.
Yeah. I can believe it. So, let me talk about the mash bill a little bit. So it's Buffalo Trace mash bill 1. We don't know exactly what that breaks down as, but it's the low rye mash bill from Buffalo Trace. So somewhere in the vicinity of like 5 to 10% rye, 5 to 10% malted barley, and the rest going to be uh, corn. Um, it, like Steven said, it's 22 to 25 bucks. It's depending on where you're at, it can be either really easy to find or really hard to find. There is no like moderate. There is no in between with Buffalo Trace. Um, I think that it is, yeah, it's a fine bottle, but I will laugh occasionally when I see people like lusting for it and like being excited that they found it because it's a $22 to $25 bottle. Um, I was at a last year. Annie and I and Augie went to we went on vacation, and it was just a little indoor water park, right? And one night we were out for dinner, and I wanted to have a old fashioned, and I asked the bartender to make me a old fashioned with Buffalo Trace, and her reaction was like, "You want me to use Buffalo Trace in an old fashioned?" I was like, yeah, I like what do we do? Like, how do we get to the point where this is like not supposed to be mixed? Like, that's weird to me. That's really super weird to me. And I think that that kind of gets at what you're talking about, Stephen, as far as like it gives it a more high end feel to it. And like that's the reason I brought that story up, is because yeah, I think that that was her reaction, because she was like, that's too high end to use in an old fashioned.
I think a lot of people who don't know whiskey well, though, see Buffalo Trace as something that is top shelf or close to that. You know, if you don't know a bunch about whiskey, but everyone's talking about Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, Blanton's,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a perception of it being a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're exactly right. And a lot of times, like, people that aren't necessarily as into bourbon also don't recognize the difference between when people are talking about the distillery versus the bottle. So I think that's probably part of it as well. But what do you say we go ahead and start drinking?
Let's do it.
I mean, that's
cheers.
Important part of the show. Cheers, guys.
The most important part.
No, the camaraderie. The camaraderie is the most important part. So yeah, it's got a nice sweet caramel forward nose. It's got quite a bit of an ethanol nose to me. Like I pick up on the ethanol pretty heavily.
Oh, really?
I do, yeah.
I think it's sweet, like a sweet caramel, like orange type.
Well, I get sweetness in orange for sure, but I also definitely can smell the alcohol.
Yeah, I don't get a ton of ethanol. I do get some, but to me, it's mainly the caramel, orange, and like some cherry as well. I always tend to associate Buffalo Trace products with like a sort of a lingering cherry always throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, I haven't had this in forever. It's a lot sweeter than I remember.
Well, I'm gonna
on the nose and the Cheers, Dan and Steven.
Cheers. Pretty good legs for a
yes, it does.
$22 bottle.
Yes, it does. 90 proof, by the way. I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but it's 90 proof.
I think one thing that drew me to it early on was, I've mentioned this before, but what I typically like in bourbon is like there has to be some sort of finish. If there's no finish, it just feels too light to me. I'm not like some guy who has to have like 120 proof. I think I agree with something Alan said a while back, where right around 100 proof, going for bottle and bond stuff, that's kind of the sweet spot. And I agree with that. And I think that this does a really good job of having a decent finish to it for what it is. And I just think that it's like a great baseline for all the things I typically like in bourbon. You know, it's not outstanding in any of those ways, but it's just really solid. It's still one of my favorite budget bottles.
Yeah, this is something I could drink all night. Like, just it's easy to drink. It doesn't it doesn't burn on the way down. It just, you get that sweet little, I mean, it's not overly decadent, but I like the orange, the vanilla, the caramel. I could just sip on it, and the finish is good, and I don't really get a burn down in my stomach at all.
Mm-hmm. So I was on, excuse me, I was on TikTok live before we started this, and somebody asked me the question of what's my favorite rye. And I was talking, I don't have a favorite rye, so I was bouncing all over the place. And one of the other guys who was
isn't it me, Ryan?
No, actually it's not.
Come on, Steven.
No, I'm gonna leave it in. So
But one of the other guys that was in the live with me, we talk quite a bit. He goes, well, my favorite is Sazerac rye. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, that's so boring, right? Like, I said, that's like saying you're a Yankees fan. And it turns out he's also a Yankees fan. And I explained that, okay, there's nothing wrong with Sazerac rye. It's just a perfectly mediocre rye. And I can say the exact same thing about Buffalo Trace. It's perfectly mediocre. It's like there are no negatives about it. I can literally not say a single bad thing about this bottle. But I'm also very limited on the positive things I can say about it, right? Like, yes, it's got a pretty good finish. Yes, it's got a pretty nice sweetness to it. Yeah, it's somewhat complex. Does that make any sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're just not too high on it. You're not too low on it. It just to you is, it's right where it should be in that price range. It's just what's weird about it is maybe the craze towards it. But I honestly think that, I mean, we're in a world where a lot of people want to be able to just grab a whiskey at the grocery store or at their local liquor store or gas station or whatever it is at a certain price range. Most people are just not in the price range to always be buying $40 bottles and up.
Oh yeah.
So, especially if you'd like to drink a lot or you're taking it to a party or something like that, it's easy to see why it quickly becomes a favorite, because out of the things available to you in that price range that you have access to, it stands above some of those others. So
I completely wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said, Stephen. It pains me to say that, but I actually very strongly agree with everything you just said. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that anything that I say, please don't, I'm not knocking Buffalo Trace. I'm also just not putting it up on a pedestal, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I'm at. But I do like the orange. And you know, one of the neat things is that you can, like, it's been a while since I've drank anything out of this bottle. This is a store pick, by the way. I should be open and upfront about that. That this is actually a single barrel select pick from Lit Cigar Bar and the St. Louis Bourbon Society. So there's a chance that mine's a little bit different than you guys's. But even sipping on this one, you can tell the relationship between this bottle, the Eagle Rare up there, the E.H. Taylor, and the Stag.
Yes.
You can recognize, like, if you were doing a blind, you'd notice that, oh, this is the same family, right? Like, this is a family of bourbons. You can pick up on that really easily. And that's cool. From a $25 bottle compared to a $35 bottle, a $45 bottle, and a $65 bottle, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I would liken it to, if you are, not everybody can go to, not everybody could go to the ocean, but you can buy a little bit of sand in a vial. You know what I mean? At a gift shop. Or not everybody can go see the Berlin Wall, but maybe your uncle has a piece of it or something like that, right? It's kind of one of those things where it's just an interesting piece of bourbon tourism to try a bottle of Buffalo Trace, if nothing else, because you're able to see the seed with which all the other bourbons are made, and it's a really strong family of bourbons. There's no way two ways about that.
And I'll throw out there one other thing on that exact, like, same train of thought. That is not the case, in my personal opinion, with Benchmark. You do not necessarily know it's from the same line when you're drinking a glass of Benchmark. You miss that because there's such a huge jump from the Benchmark line, the standard Benchmark line. Listeners, I know Benchmark now has a foolproof version, they released 8 different versions or 6 different versions of Benchmark. I'm talking about the old standard Benchmark McAfee's number 8 or whatever
80,
the fuck it
80
is.
proof.
Yeah,
40%
just
off.
just the standard old one that you could buy 5 years ago. There's such a huge jump from that bottle of Benchmark to this that you may not recognize that Benchmark is even the same line.
Buffalo Trace aged 8 years, right? So what is Benchmark 4? This is 8, right? Or am I crazy?
I think you're crazy.
Am I crazy?
There is no definitive age statement, but I think that it averages 2 to 4, if I remember correctly. Let me take a look.
I thought it was longer than that.
Holy shit. They say that it is at least 8 years. No shit. I had no idea.
I mean, how many 8-year-old? I mean, for that price, that's pretty good.
That's great
For an 8-year-old whiskey, you know. And I thought because I Google it a few hours ago. A lot of people think it's like 9 years, 9.5 years, like in between 8 and 10, and the standard's usually 9. But it's not. I mean, we don't know that info for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not a lot of distilleries could offer that, right? I mean, not a lot of distilleries could possibly offer a bottle of this price point at this quantity at that number of years.
Yeah.
It's kind of showing off at that point.
You're not wrong. That speaks to the amount of rickhouse space they have available to them.
Well, they just doubled it, right? I think they're almost done with all that, or if they're not done already.
I don't know. I don't know where they're at. I know that they pumped a couple $1 billion into additional production and storage capacity, but yeah, I don't know where they're standing as far as like close to completion, etc. But even if they did just double it, if this is aged 8 years, they're not going to recognize. They're not going to realize it for at least 8 years, right? Like,
yeah,
at least as far as this line goes.
2013, man, we were still juniors in college when this was. Crazy. Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, I had no idea that it was aged that long. See, you learn something new every fucking day.
Looking at the back of this bottle, there's a few interesting things. One is their email address, if you want to email them, is greatbourbon@buffalotrace.com. So, just in case you fuckers didn't know, And then they also say, right above that, it's part of a section called Let Us Hear Your Thunder.
Uh-huh.
Which maybe if I bothered to read that left side of their story, I would understand. But I'm like, what's up with the Let Us Hear Your Thunder? What's the story on that?
Well, it turns out that they are huge fans of AC/DC. That's really... Thunder. But I did know that, like, a trace is another word for, like, a path, right? So, like, Buffalo Trace means, like, a path that Buffalo made. I think. I don't know.
Or it could be an area. You know what I mean? You could just have, like, Dan's Trace, and it's just, like, some path you made in the woods behind your house.
Is that true?
It has to be.
Gotta be.
You guys seen Liar Liar? Whenever he's like, he tells the judge at one point, he's like, I need to pee. We need to break now. If I don't, it can lower your sperm count the longer you hold it. And the judge is like, is that true? And he just goes, it has to be. He's like exasperated. He's like, and that's a funny joke. It has to be.
So, hey, are we going to spend like 20 more minutes talking about vacuums? Is that a...
I mean, it's up to you. We don't have to, but man, would I love to.
Do you have your notes aside, ready to go, just in case?
It doesn't come up that often in like casual conversations, so yeah, I mean, I gotta insert it where I can, and just like, if people aren't gonna, a lot of people don't even know. I mean, this is sad to say, but a lot of people don't even know to ask about the SIBO D4 Air Belt Premium.
Mean, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I've heard that Dyson makes much better vacuums.
Man.
Here we go. It has to be true. I saw it on TV.
We're really gonna get those listeners with vacuum talk.
It's the cyclone
Yeah.
that Dyson creates. That's what makes it better.
Man, I don't know what our listenership over in Germany. If it's anything like the U.S., it's non-existent. But if we have some people,
I've seen the numbers. It's non-existent no matter where you go. Okay?
Right. But if there is somebody that happens to listen to this episode in Germany, they're going to be like, I might stick around here if they're going to talk about the SIBO versus Miele wars.
I just bought some fucking Birkenstocks yesterday. So.
Oh.
You going to a Fish concert soon or something?
No, it's for the wedding on Saturday for the reception.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're comfortable, man, and they're German. So
1 second, let me let this fucking cat outside.
It's not being loud.
No, but she's gonna be scratching the door. I don't want to do that. 1 second.
Yep. You gotta do that again when he comes back. Do it loud.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's for you. That's for editing.
Oh,
for editing purposes.
I thought you installed a clap on it. Sucks a dick. Did you guys ever have a clapper? Did you know anybody with a clapper?
No, I did not.
All right, well.
Did you?
No, I never did. I thought that they would be like. I thought one of us would know somebody who had a clapper. I didn't know it was going to go fucking nowhere. That was pretty popular for a while. I felt like
just because there were a lot of commercials about it doesn't mean it was popular.
And it was in like every movie ever for a while there.
Yeah, I mean, I knew of people that had them, but I wouldn't say in conversation right now that I knew somebody with one. You know what I mean? Like I was aware of people that had them, kind of thing. So that's why I felt like they were popular for a while. But I never had one, and I never was like over at somebody's house that had one. I do remember like touch lamps being much bigger.
Oh yeah,
for a while.
Yeah, we had those.
My grandparents were like, both my grandmas were all about the touch lamps.
Yeah,
but I didn't even know of anyone who ever had a clapper. Like, if they did have one, they kept that shit on the down low, right? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know a single person either.
In a way, it was ahead of its time because of now all like the smart home technology where you do it with your voice.
I mean, I think part of it was the corniness of the clap on, clap off the clapper song, right? Like, that did not do them any favors. Well, or maybe it did, and
I mean, you still remember it, right?
It's a good jingle.
I don't buy into the fact that just because something is memorable means it's good.
I would tell you I met the guy who created the jingle for Menards.
Oh my God, I was about to bring up that jingle, but go tell the story first.
I was at where we went for your bachelor party, the Luca Grill.
Yeah.
I was sitting there like I was working a double at Schooners, and I'm sitting next to this guy, and he was kind of a dickhead, but like a funny dude. So I started talking to him, like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just driving up from, forget where he's come from, like St. Louis. I was recording some stuff down there." Like, "Oh, for what?" He's like, "I do jingles for businesses and all that." He's like, "Yeah, I created the Menards one like 30 years ago. Still getting residuals on it." I was like, "Holy shit." And I forget what other ones he did, but this guy has created like 5 huge jingles. So he's probably filthy rich. But I hate that Menards jingle. Yeah. You know, it stays in my head, but it's so annoying to me that I'll never forget it. So maybe you just have to be an annoying person.
Have you heard it in stores though?
Like at Menards or other stores?
At Menards. Because they'll play the full version of it.
Yeah, and it's like 3 minutes long or something.
Yeah, and that version is a little bit different because there's typically, if you just hear the commercial, it just goes, "Save big money at Menards." Like, that's it. But if you go in the store, it's like, it sounds like something out of like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, where it's like something, it's like the evil corporation loop.
Are we going to bring that up every other episode?
It's
Halloween 3.
If it's relevant. Thank you, Daniel.
I'm just saying, you brought it up during the Alan Bishop episode, which made sense because he was wearing a Halloween shirt.
And this time it makes sense because it's like that evil corporation jingle that they're trying to incept into your heads. because it's like, Dan, do you know the Menards jingle, like the full one?
I mean,
they
I've been to
go, like,
Menards a bunch of times, but I've never.
In
I don't
store,
remember
they
ever
play
hearing
it. They play the loop like every other song on the radio. They'll interrupt it, and then they'll play this, and then they'll return to and it'll go. It goes, you save money, big money when you shop Menards, and then it's like there's just something very creepy about it, and it's like it's kind of like just very 50s and just like Stepford Wives ish kind of thing, and
that whole store is weird, man.
yeah. I just feel
They're
like the
all
employees
creepy.
have to be like so sick of it after a day's work because if you're there for 30 minutes, you'll hear it 6 times. So,
But I mean, I've been there a bunch of times, and I don't remember ever hearing it. Maybe it's just like so subconscious that I
because
just
you're trained for
No,
war. You are
I just
laser
accept it.
focused.
you're probably walking around not knowing where the hell anything is, because where the hell is anything at Menards? I've never once gone to Menards, been able to find something like in 5 minutes. It's like,
Well, we do our own shopping, so we've probably gotten more accustomed to navigating stores over time.
yeah, yeah.
We're not just in cubicles all day, dude. We're out there living our fucking lives in the stores, dude.
not pulling our back when
Yeah.
we're washing fucking sample bottles.
Yeah.
You've never been in a big box like home supply store because
I'm not that I'm like, I mean, Menards is a big corporation, but I mean, I hate Home Depot too, but like Lowe's and Home Depot, they're just more modern. It's like you go into a Menards, you just feel like you're in the 70s.
Ryan, what projects have you ever done?
I've been to Menards a bunch of times.
That's not what I asked.
Doesn't mean I'm doing projects, but I've been to Menards. I went there to buy light bulbs. It was terrible.
So
The worst experience of my life.
Why did you have a bad experience? Light bulbs are like at the front of the store.
yeah,
At this one, they're all the way to the left side. There was like 3 aisles of them.
where they're like
LED in different aisles. It was just confusing. You ask a worker and they're like, it's somewhere over there. It's like, yeah, thanks.
There's no way. There's no way an employee goes, there's somewhere over there. What are you talking about?
I swear, it's the worst Menards in the world. It's in Tinley Park or wherever it is right over here. It's awful.
If this was a Google or like Yelp review, I'd be like, this guy doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. Like, I'm just throwing this one out, dude.
Or whenever you guys come up to visit, we'll go straight to the Menards.
So you're saying
park
it's
your
that
cars.
Menards. That Menards sucks.
It's that Menards, yes.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
I
they
can
all
maybe
are
buy
kinda
off on.
creepy.
Well, I'm not going to deny that they're not somewhat creepy. Like the vibes you get there are pretty fucking weird. But I've never had a hard time finding anything there. I have a harder time finding things I don't need but end up buying there. Like Australian licorice. Like who knew Australian licorice was so goddamn good?
Ugh.
Like red licorice? Wallabies? I think it's Wallabies red licorice.
Oh, Jesse gets that stuff, yeah.
It's so fucking good.
Jesse gets the green apple one.
I just get the like
I don't know
regular
how
cherry
anyone
or strawberry or whatever.
How the hell does anyone eat licorice?
Cherry, obviously.
That shit is so gross. The texture. You gotta be a special kind of person to eat that shit.
Ryan, I'm just going to ignore
popular.
that. I really, really badly want to go with you to that Menards. Walk in, the first employee I find, I just want to ask them where the light bulbs are and see how they respond. Because I would
record that for us too, by the way. Because I'm calling bullshit too. Just FYI.
I would literally shit my own pants if they go, it's over there somewhere. And just leave it at that.
I mean, isn't Menards like Iowa Amish company, basically?
They're fucking weird. I mean, that's for sure.
I just can't imagine them being like, have an employee say that and that dude not get fired.
I mean, I wasn't going to complain on him, because he probably didn't know where it is either. It's a terrible store.
It seems like something that would happen at like a Harbor Freight Tools, but not a Menards.
It would 100% happen at a Harbor Freight. All right, let's go ahead and rate some Buffalo Trace here. What do we say? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
Tastes like caramel, tastes like vanilla. There's some orange in there. It tastes just like how it smells. I feel like I don't really get as much ethanol as you do, Dan. But like I said, this is something I could drink all night long. And I mean, I've done some damage on the bottle already, so I'll probably have another glass or two of that. I like it. I mean, if I want something cheap to make a Manhattan old fashioned, I don't want to use my good stuff. Buy this for $22, $23 every day. I mean, 8 years old, only, I mean, $25 maybe at the most. I'm going to go a 7.3. I like it. You probably think it's going to be high, but I haven't had this.
I think you're high.
I haven't had Buffalo Trace in probably 2 years, and I like it more than I remember. I mean, it's good. It's sweeter than I remember. I liked it. So, and you can't judge me for that, Dan. You know, sorry, it's not a 3.2.
I can judge you for whatever the fuck I want to judge you for.
I mean, I really like it a lot as well. I'm gonna just give it a 7.0, right on the dot. I think that it is, to me, it's definitely a step up from your Jim Beam white labels, and like we talked about earlier, it's a lot better in that price range and on those same shelves that you'll see a Jim Beam white label for. I think it's just a more full-bodied experience, and it hits a lot more of the notes that I like having in all the nose, the palate, and the finish. For me, it hits all those. It's not the best at each one, but it's just a really solid package for the price. And I've just never had a bad time having a Buffalo Trace product. I really haven't. And I think that most of them, I would just say, are good for their price at MSRP. That's what I would stress with Buffalo Trace stuff. Never have had a bad time drinking any of them, but I've also had a pretty low bar for having a good time with them because they're so affordable. So I highly recommend checking out if you haven't. But so many people have checked it out already because it's really solid at what it does.
All right, 6.0. It's perfectly mediocre. It is, I mean, we're comparing things to Jim Beam White Label. It is not dramatically better than Jim Beam White.
Another brother showing